Let's take a look at the Revelation's persecutions. I want to acknowledge some references here. This even started in my brain because of this book, The Seven Churches of Asia, and that book is by One Stone Biblical Resources, and there's their website, onestone.com, but I also found timetracks.com and could see some of that material was even from there. So a lot of this you're going to find many sources cutting and pasting. It seems these same phrases over and over. But let's look at, there were 10 great persecutions of the church, is the way some people categorize it or call it. So 10 great persecutions. We will quickly look at these. First persecution, about 64 AD. This one's considered to be Rome burned to the ground. We've heard of Nero. He was accused of setting that fire. He charged the most despised sect of the Jews, if you will. Of course, who's that going to be? The Christians with the crime. Tacitus says that in order to put down the rumor that he had done these things, he set them up as objects of this, the ones that were called Christians. Deaths were numerous. Mockeries were added to the deaths of these Christians, some tied up, wrapped in skins of wild beasts, torn pieces by dogs, others crucified, some set on fire. And it was during this time that the Jews sent Paul for execution. So here is a persecution that Christians went through around 64 AD. A second persecution, reign of Domitian, about AD 81 to 96. And you can see that's getting right into the time frame we mentioned in one of our other videos about when the book of Revelation's being written, Christians condemned for their beliefs, numbers put to death, around 40,000. He required them, this ruler or emperor, to call him Lord and God. If you didn't do that, you would be banished or put to death. He was known for his cruelty, apparently killed his brother, and in a rage he had many of the Senate killed. And either it was just for malice or to confiscate their estate. But this is the type of person that persecuted Christians around the time of John in the book of Revelations. Third persecution of these 10 great ones, reign of Trajan, about 100 AD. It lasted about 6 years. We're seeing anyone who refused to worship national gods or indulge in vices that they wanted you to indulge in were put to death. Ignatius, a known Christian, was martyred. Eustathius, brave, he was a Roman commander, ordered to join in an adulterous sacrifice. Being a Christian, he refused it, and enraged at the denial, the emperor had him and his family murdered. Part of history here that one of Rome's own was killed for not engaging in these things because he was a Christian. Fourth persecution, forgive me of my pronunciations, under Antonius Pius and Marcus Aurelius. Antonius, about these people covered a span of 138 to 180, so quite a span here. Said perhaps the most cruel, and whatever that time frame was in there, it was 19 years of their reign that was considered to be this persecution. Thousands of Christians separated from their families, tortured, killed. Fifth persecution of the 10, Empress Severus, about AD 193 to 11, around 200 AD, issued an edict forbidding anyone to embrace Christianity. Persecution, part of history is that a mother and her daughter were caught or denied Christ. Both remained true to their deaths. An executioner moved by them being so faithful, he was later put to death for being a Christian. This one says it lasted about 18 years. Sixth persecution under Maximus, around almost 240. Look at that, 235 to 238 AD. Some provinces, everything was done to exterminate all Christians. It says countless Christians slain without trials, buried in heaps, said sometimes 50 to 60 in a pit or pile at a time, Christians. Seventh persecution of the 10, Decius, around 250 AD, brought on because Decius hated his predecessor, who was a Christian, partly because of his jealousy about this increase of Christianity. They're growing. Heathen temples of the religions and things he cared about were being forsaken. Churches of Christians were growing. Basically, the ungodly, the heathen, were taking the law in their own hands. They were killing Christians and considered it merit, a good thing. whatever in the crown there, a feather in your cap for being able to kill these Christians. They were sacrificed to false gods, tortured to death. Some recanted, but even with the recanting, they would usually end up dying. And remember what Revelation says to people around these times. It said, be faithful unto death, and I'll give you a crown of life. Eighth persecution, one called Valerian. Martyrs were innumerable. Tortures various, painful, it says. It didn't matter what rank you were, what gender, what age. And there was an edict that says of 257, 258 that ordered all Christian leaders put to death that did not sacrifice to the gods that they wanted them to sacrifice to. Ninth persecution, Aurelian and Maximian. As I did a little bit of homework, not much, but a little, it seemed to fall under both of these guys' timelines, and it is a neat account of history, apparently. Has the exact date and everything. September 22, 286 AD, the Theban Legion had supposedly 6,666 soldiers that were all Christians, ordered to march over the Alps to Gaul. Maximian orders a general sacrifice. The whole army was going to assist. They would take the oath of allegiance and assist in killing these Christians in Gaul. Whole legion refused to take the oath or to offer this sacrifice, and the emperor was enraged. He orders every 10th soldier butchered, which we know this is called decimating. Dessa, a prefix. So every 10th soldier killed. Legion still, the 90% remaining, still said, no, we're not going to do it. Decimates again. They still won't do it. So at that point, he has the whole legion killed. This is considered the 9th persecution. And finally, the 10th of the 10 considered persecutions here, Diocletian, about close to 300 AD there. It began in 302, lasted 10 years. Houses of Christians where they gathered for worship. They were sealed, set on fire. Christians, even small children, tied together with ropes, weighted stones, thrown in the sea. 17,000 history claiming to have been slain in 1 month. Total killed about 140,000. So summarizing this, we can see 10 great persecutions, some here under Nero, which we are familiar with from some scriptures of referring to Nero. And then we see, getting around 81, 96 AD, these names that we talked about. And think about this. This is why we've mentioned this. Right in here is where the book of Revelations was written. No matter what, this context is important to know what's happening at the time John is writing the book. And also, no matter what, we as Christians can step back and think about what people have given for their faith. Just a reminder here that Revelations 2:10 through 11, do not fear what you're about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison. You'll be tested. For 10 days you'll have tribulation. Be faithful unto death. I'll give you the crown of life. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death. We'll continue studying and trying to understand what the book of Revelations is talking about.